You know, when you reach my age, 78 years old, people start looking at you differently. Like you're already halfway to the grave. But what I'm about to tell you, it's going to shake you to your very core. Because sometimes, when you think everything is lost, when your own children turn their backs on you, God sends you an angel in the most unexpected form. My name is Esperanza Nakamura-Reeves, and I've lived through World War II, the Kennedy assassination, 9/11s, and Hurricane Katrina that destroyed my New Orleans home in 2005. But nothing prepared me for what happened when I lost my daughter, Keiko, and her husband in that terrible car accident on Interstate 10, just outside Baton Rouge, on a rainy October night in 2019. That phone call at 2:17 a.m. changed everything. One moment I was a grandmother enjoying my retirement, the next I was responsible for my 8-year-old grandson, Kai. At 74 years old, I thought I was done raising children. But life had other plans. You see, dear viewers, age doesn't come alone. It brings arthritis that makes your joints scream every morning. It brings diabetes that turns every meal into a calculation. It brings loneliness that eats at your soul like cancer. And Medicare. Oh, don't get me started on Medicare. They tell you it covers everything until you need it most. By 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was already struggling. My Social Security barely covered the rent on our small apartment in Memphis, Tennessee. The cost of living kept rising while my fixed income stayed the same. Food prices doubled, utilities tripled, and my prescription medications, they might as well have been made of gold. Kai was grieving, acting out at school, having nightmares every single night. The school counselor kept calling, saying he needed therapy, special attention, things I couldn't afford. My own health was deteriorating rapidly. I couldn't climb stairs without gasping for air. My hands shook so badly I could barely sign checks. The doctor said it was Parkinson's beginning to show its cruel face. And my other children, my son Roberto in California, and my daughter Yuki in Florida, they had their own lives, their own problems. Mom, we can't take on Kai right now, they said. Maybe you should consider other options. Other options. That's code for give up the child and die alone in a nursing home. Let me tell you about what it really means to age in America today. They don't prepare you for the indignity of it all. The way doctors start talking over you instead of to you. The way your own adult children begin making decisions about your life without asking. The way society just stops seeing you. I had worked for 43 years, paid my taxes, raised 3 children, volunteered in my community. But none of that mattered when I couldn't afford to put gas in my car and buy groceries in the same week. None of that mattered when I had to choose between heating the apartment or filling my prescriptions. By early 2022, I was 76 and barely surviving. The medication costs were astronomical. Some days I had to choose between buying insulin or groceries. Kai would find me crying in the kitchen, and this poor boy, this child who had already lost so much, would pat my back and say, "It's okay, Grandma ESP, we'll figure it out." But we weren't figuring it out. We were drowning. I remember one particularly dark February evening. The heat had been turned off because I couldn't pay the bill. Kai and I were huddled under blankets, eating canned soup cold because even the gas had been shut off. He looked at me with those big brown eyes, so much like his mother's, and asked, "Grandma, are we going to be okay?" I lied to him, "Of course, sweetheart, everything will be fine." But inside, I was screaming. I was failing this precious child, the same way the world had failed me. You want to know what nobody tells you about being elderly in America? How quickly you become invisible. How your opinions suddenly don't matter. How your stories become rambling and your concerns become complaints. How every ache and pain gets dismissed with, "Well, what do you expect at your age?" Social Security is a joke when you've worked minimum wage jobs your whole life. Medicare has more holes than Swiss cheese. The safety net everyone talks about. It's made of paper, and it tears the moment you actually need it. I applied for food stamps. Do you know how humiliating it is to sit in a government office, surrounded by people who look at you like you're somehow at fault for being old and poor? The housing assistance waitlist was 7 years long. 7 years. At 76, I didn't have 7 years to wait for affordable housing. That's when Marcus Williams entered our lives. Now, you need to understand something about Marcus. He was only 24 years old, working 2 jobs, one at the grocery store where I shopped, another at a fast food restaurant. He lived in a studio apartment that was smaller than most people's closets. He drove a beat-up Honda Civic that sounded like it was dying every time he started it. But this young man, he had a heart bigger than Texas. It started small. He noticed I was buying less and less food, that Kai looked thinner each week. One day he quietly slipped an extra bag of groceries into my cart. These were damaged, he lied smoothly. Can't sell them, but they're perfectly good. Take them. I tried to refuse, but he insisted. Mrs. Nakamura-Reeves, he said, my grandmother raised me when my parents couldn't. She always said the community takes care of its own. Marcus started visiting us regularly, not just bringing food, but bringing hope. He'd sit with Kai and help him with homework while I rested. He'd listen to my stories about Keiko, about the old days, about my fears for the future. He didn't check his phone, didn't look bored, didn't make me feel like I was wasting his time. What Marcus understood that my own children didn't was the value of elderly wisdom. He'd ask me about history, about cooking, about life lessons learned through 8 decades of living. He made me feel useful again, needed, valuable. I taught him how to make my grandmother's tamales, a recipe that had been passed down through 5 generations. I showed him how to mend clothes, how to stretch a dollar, how to find joy in small moments. In return, he showed Kai and me that kindness still existed in the world. In June 2022, Marcus got an opportunity that would change all our lives. His uncle in Portland, Oregon, offered him a better job, real money, benefits, a chance at a future. But it meant leaving Memphis, leaving us. I'll never forget that conversation. We were sitting in my tiny living room, Kai asleep on the couch between us. Mrs. Nakamura-Reeves, Marcus said, his voice heavy with emotion, I can't leave you and Kai like this, but I also can't keep watching you struggle when there might be a solution. What do you mean? I asked. Come with me to Portland, all of us, together. I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Marcus, honey, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, he interrupted. I'm offering. Kai needs stability. You need support. I need family. Real family. On August 15, 2022, exactly 3 years ago today, we loaded everything we owned into Marcus's Honda Civic and a small U-Haul trailer. Kai sat in the back seat, clutching his mother's photograph, excited about our adventure. I sat in the passenger seat, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. The drive took 4 days. Marcus insisted we stop frequently, not just for gas but for rest, for the simple joy of being together. We visited the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, where Kai learned about westward expansion. We stopped at roadside diners, where Marcus encouraged me to share stories of my travels with his late grandfather. Portland was a revelation. The air was cleaner, the pace slower, the community more welcoming. Marcus's uncle Jerome was a man in his 50s who had built a successful landscaping business. He welcomed us with open arms and immediately set about making us feel at home. Jerome helped us find a small 2-bedroom apartment just 10 minutes from Marcus's new job. But more importantly, he introduced us to the community. The senior center had programs I had never imagined: book clubs, art classes, cooking groups, support circles for grandparents, raising grandchildren. Kai enrolled in Lincoln Middle School, which had grief counseling services and a diversity program that celebrated his mixed heritage. For the first time since his parents' death, I watched my grandson not just smile, but laugh, really laugh. What changed wasn't just our circumstances, it was how we saw ourselves. In Memphis, I was a burden, an old woman struggling to care for a traumatized child. In Portland, I was a resource, a woman with decades of experience and wisdom to share. The senior center connected me with other grandparents in similar situations. Maria, who was raising her drug-addicted daughter's twins. Robert, who had taken in his grandson after his son died in Afghanistan. Janet, whose daughter had abandoned her children and disappeared. We formed a support group, sharing not just our struggles but our strategies. We learned about government programs we'd never heard of, legal resources for grandparent rights, financial assistance for kinship care. We discovered that we weren't failures or victims. We were heroes stepping up when families fell apart. Let me address something that affects every elderly person watching this video: the healthcare crisis facing seniors. Portland opened my eyes to what healthcare could be when it's designed around patient needs instead of insurance profits. My new doctor spent an hour with me during our first appointment. An hour. She listened to my concerns, reviewed my medications, and worked with me to create a treatment plan that considered my financial limitations. She connected me with a social worker who helped me apply for prescription assistance programs I never knew existed. The difference wasn't just access to better healthcare, it was a complete shift in how I approached aging. Instead of accepting decline as inevitable, I learned to fight for every bit of strength and independence I could maintain. At 78, I'm more active and engaged than I was at 76. Here's something they don't tell you about aging: loneliness can literally kill you. Studies show that chronic loneliness has the same health impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. In Memphis, I could go days without speaking to another adult. The silence was deafening. Portland changed that completely. The senior center became my second home. I joined a book club, participated in current events, discussions, learned watercolor painting. More importantly, I made friends, real friends, who cared about my well-being. Watching Kai bloom in Portland has been the greatest joy of these past 3 years. In Memphis, he was a traumatized 8-year-old acting out his grief. In Portland, he became a confident, compassionate teenager with dreams for his future. The grief counseling helped him process his parents' death in healthy ways. The diversity program helped him embrace his multicultural heritage. Kai is 14 now, an honor student who plays violin and participates in the robotics club. He volunteers at the animal shelter every Saturday. Most importantly, he has hope. When he talks about his future, it's with excitement, not fear. He wants to become a veterinarian, maybe specialize in animal therapy. He wants to make a difference in the world. When Marcus and Rebecca got engaged last Christmas, they asked me to help plan their wedding. Rebecca was a nurse he met at his new job, and she fell in love not just with Marcus, but with our little makeshift family. The wedding was beautiful, a small ceremony in a Portland park. When Marcus asked me to walk him down the aisle alongside his grandmother, I sobbed with joy. "You're the mother I chose," he whispered to me. "You taught me that family isn't just blood, it's commitment." I walk 3 miles every morning through Portland's beautiful neighborhoods. I volunteer at 3 different organizations, teaching cooking classes and mentoring other grandparents raising grandchildren. I've written a memoir about our journey that will be published next year. But most importantly, I've learned that life doesn't end when you turn 65, or 70, or 75. It changes, yes, but you also discover new strengths, new purposes, new sources of joy. My biological children, Roberto and Yuki, they call more now. They want to visit, want to be part of our success story. "Mom, we're so proud of you," they say now. But where were they when Kai and I were eating cold soup in a freezing apartment? Where were they when I was choosing between medication and groceries? I've forgiven them, but I've also learned that family isn't just blood. Family is the people who show up when life gets ugly. Marcus Williams is my son in every way that matters. Rebecca is my daughter-in-law. If you're watching this and you're struggling with aging, with health problems, with financial stress, with loneliness, please hear this. You are not done. Your story is not over. Your best chapters might still be ahead of you. Don't accept poor treatment from doctors who dismiss your concerns. Don't tolerate disrespect from adult children who see you as a burden. Don't believe the lie that your dreams aren't worth pursuing. You have wisdom that younger generations desperately need. Your experience has value. Your life has meaning beyond your ability to be productive. If you're young and watching this, understand that you're looking at your future. Every elderly person was once your age, with dreams just like yours. How you treat us today is how you'll want to be treated tomorrow. Look around you. See the elderly neighbor who might need help. See the grandparents struggling to raise grandchildren. They're not invisible. They're repositories of wisdom, sources of love, living links to history. Be someone's Marcus. You don't have to be wealthy to make a difference. You just have to be willing to see suffering and respond with kindness. Marcus's kindness didn't just save Kai and me. It created a movement. We started an intergenerational support network in Portland that has been replicated in 12 other cities. We've matched hundreds of isolated seniors with young adults seeking mentorship. Kai speaks at middle schools about grief and resilience. He's writing a children's book about his journey. I've been invited to speak at conferences about aging and community building. At 78, I'm busier and more purpose-driven than I imagined possible. On October 23, 2019, I got that phone call that shattered my world. I thought it was the end of everything good in my life. I thought I was too old, too poor, too sick, to successfully raise a grieving child. I was wrong about everything. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the most meaningful years I've ever lived. It led me to Marcus, to Portland, to a community that values wisdom over youth, love over convenience. Life will knock you down. Age will slow you down. Loss will break your heart. But if you keep moving forward, keep your heart open to unexpected blessings, miracles can happen at any age. I'm 78 years old, and I'm just getting started. My grandson is thriving. My chosen family is growing. My community is stronger because I didn't give up. You are never too old to start over, never too broken to heal, never too alone to find family. Somewhere out there is someone who needs exactly what you have to offer. Thank you for listening to my story. If this touched you, please subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs hope, and remember that your story isn't over either. The best is yet to come. This is Esperanza Nakamura-Reeves, reporting from Portland, Oregon, where miracles happen every single day when we choose love over fear, community over isolation, and hope over despair. God bless you all.